Zac Amico,
Hey, how you
welcome.
doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm feeling very well, sweating it out.
Yeah, that's right. Are you doing a lot of podcast appearances this week?
Yeah, I'm swamped this week. I'm going on a little tour, so I've been doing a lot of appearances.
Oh, good. So we're going to talk podcasting. We're going to talk touring, and we're going to talk about trauma. All right. So you're on the Real Ass podcast with Louis J. Gomez, and also you got your own podcast, Zac Amico's Midnight Spook Show, which is kind of like if I were to compare it to like the Mystery Science Theater, right? You know, because you play the movie and then you guys
Yeah,
talk about it, right?
it's very influenced by Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah.
It's just instead of witty comedy writers, it's degenerate comedians trying to pay attention to a movie.
Well, look, I was watching one of the episodes the other day, and I think you were trying to explain how you get away with doing it because, you know, when you show a movie on YouTube, they sometimes ban you. Even, you know, I used to use for the music for this podcast, I would use the Bob Newhart theme, and I got warned by YouTube, so I took it down. So, do you ever get any warnings from them over your content?
Yeah, I have to be careful about movies that are extremely popular, so I try to veer away from those. And more, it's anything with a very popular song.
Oh yeah.
I've only had a couple episodes get taken down. The one that we just couldn't keep up was Monster Squad because the song, they replay it like 5 times,
Yeah.
and they just kept getting copyright strikes. And they
Yeah.
took away Ernest Scared Stupid as well.
Well, that's number what in the Ernest series?
It's pretty deep.
Yeah. So and what is Ernest like? Was he from a commercial? That guy, was it like a commercial campaign that turned into movies?
Yes, it was Jim Varney always talking to Vern off camera.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was a commercial for, but then it became movies from the commercial.
That's right. Hey Vern, and but Jim was on camera and Vern was
Yeah,
off. Right?
Vern was the person behind the camera in the
Yeah.
commercials.
Yeah, there was a number. It'd be interesting to do kind of a film festival of things that came from commercials because you got. I mean, I basically put Paul Hogan in that because he became famous because he was the spokesman for Australia tourism,
Hmm.
and you probably don't remember that. I remember when those were ads on TV, and he became a celebrity because it'd say "G'day, mate, g'day," you know. And then they were like, "We got to do something with this guy. Everybody around the world loves him," and so they made movies out of him. And Ernest was another one, right? And
Yeah, I thought you were going to say an Ernest Film Festival, which
Yeah.
I actually have friends who do.
You really?
Yeah, there's a great drive-in called the Mahoning in Pennsylvania, and they do themed weekends. And I think it's something ridiculous, like $10 to stay there overnight.
Yeah.
And they do movies sundown to sunup.
Oh, so is it like a campground or are they in a motel?
It's a drive-in movie theater, so it's like 2 football fields.
Yeah. So you basically stay in your car or in a tent outside your car.
Yeah, people bring tents and camp out, but they did all the Ernests back to back over 3 days.
Wow, that's incredible.
I've done the Troma. We do a yearly event there. They've done all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. A lot of directors will come and bring like props from the movies. It's the coolest place.
Yeah. So let's talk about Troma because we're on the subject, and I have a little bit of a kind of a connection with Troma because I grew up in Massachusetts, and Toxic Avenger came out in '84. That was the year I graduated high school, and I saw that. I believe I saw it at the Orson Welles Theater in Cambridge. There was like a midnight show or something like that. But then I went on to work at the Somerville Theater, which is, you know, in summer, it's near Harvard Square, but this old revival movie house. And every year we would have the Boston Sci-Fi Movie Marathon. Do you know of that? You know what that is up in Boston?
Not really. I know when we do events in Boston, I think it's the Coolidge.
Yeah.
Has us now, but no, that's a little before my tenure.
Okay. So yeah, I'm basically talking about graduated in '84, and then everybody knew about Toxic Avenger, which was not the first Troma film, but probably the one that put him on the map. Am I right about that?
Yes, prior to Toxic Avenger, Troma was mostly known for sexy comedies, along the lines of like a Porky's.
Yeah.
So they did Squeeze Play, Stuck on You, The First Turn On. That was kind of their bread and butter, would be like hot young people in screwball comedies.
Yeah. Do you ever remember the Ski School, like Ski School and Ski
Yes.
School 2? Was that Troma?
No, but a very similar vein.
It's always the plots are often. I mean, maybe you know a lot about this genre, but it's kind of like the plots of these like you call them sexy comedies. They're kind of like, I mean, you'd almost call them soft core. It's like kind of topless girls, right, and guys horsing around.
Yes, more like it's the two things Troma has ever had are enthusiastic young people and practical special effects. Without that, it all falls apart.
Yeah, and so they have to do with the ones that aren't sci-fi usually have to do with guys in some kind of hijinks. Like when you're talking about Ski School, these guys, they want to keep their cushy job at the ski school, and then so they have to. But the ski school is being sold to an evil developer, and then they have to do something to thwart the evil developer so they can continue with their hijinks and fun way of living. Right? Is that kind of sound like an accurate plot?
Yeah, exactly. There's actually, if I can make a recommendation, there's a great movie called Ski Wolf. That's Ski School Teen Wolf. And he can only ski as the wolf.
Oh, yeah. Wow. He can
Only the wolf is good at skiing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's great. So now what kind of people, because I'm not really, I used to work at the Somerville Theater. So we had the 24-hour Sci-Fi Fest was there every year. And my boss was a guy named Garen Daly. He used to run the Orson Welles Theater. And then, so my exposure to this kind of B-movie horror genre was mostly through that sci-fi marathon that we would do there. And the people would come and they would kind of like, was it 24 hours or 40? It was a whole weekend. So it was more than 24 hours, but they would stay overnight in the theater and the place would get pretty smelly and everything. And, they would bring, sandwiches and they would buy the popcorn and stuff like that. But they would just watch, lots and lots of sci-fi films and sci-fi and horror. And they were a great crowd. It was like, how would you describe this world? I mean, you're obviously part of it. Like you're in the movies, you're a fan of the movies, right?
Yeah, I've been a lifelong fan. I would say that Troma movies are live action cartoons.
Yeah.
Everything is to the 10th degree. Everything's turned up to 11. And the fans are an eclectic group of weirdos. To give a good example, one of the big reasons Troma excelled in the home video market during the rental years is because so many of our fans are felons that they would rent all the movies and steal them. So video stores always had to rebuy all our movies for like 10 years. Every year they would have to buy a new rental copy because one of our fans made a fake account and stole 10 movies.
Yeah, yeah. And would you say they're like, you say they're felons. I mean, are they kind of petty felons? Like they only steal these things because they love them? Or are they really on the criminal element side of the world?
I would say it's more mischievous and punk rock.
Yeah.
And then a heavy dose of nerd.
Yeah. And did you like what were the movies that you probably watched? We used to have a thing called Creature Double Feature, which was on the UHF channels. But I had certain friends who were kind of obsessed with Creature Double Feature and like the old, like I'm talking about, Godzilla, Rodan, all that kind of stuff. Did you kind of like that as a kid?
I got very into slashers and horror probably in like 4th grade.
Oh yeah. So do you think that is, I mean, I think I wouldn't let a young kid watch slashers. Obviously it was part of your upbringing. You probably have a warm feeling in your heart about slasher movies, but don't you think there's something a little bit off?
Oh, without a doubt. But I actually like the way my parents did it, which was I was only allowed to watch it on the USA edited version.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I didn't have them, but I was allowed to watch the TV edited versions.
Yeah, that's kind of the way we watched all our movies.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, there was no, this was network TV. So if we watched even something like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, it was on ABC, and the family would watch it together, and they would just cut out the inappropriate parts. So a lot of times I have these movies that I watched as a kid, and then I said, hey, why don't we all watch Butch and Sundance with the family? But it's a little dirtier, the real version. And my wife is like, what are we watching this movie for? But we watched essentially clean versions, even like Animal House. If it ever made it to TV, it was all chopped up, right?
Yeah, well, we're going back to that. So, because I don't know if you know this, they found out Tubi has been hiring freelance editors to take all the nudity out of the movies they show.
Oh, wow.
And they haven't consulted with the filmmakers. So it's the filmmakers have no say in the edit. They do it themselves.
Yeah, because there's no commercials in there.
Well, Tubi has commercials. That's why it's free.
Right. Okay. And so it's probably to satisfy their advertisers because they're going to charge.
Because advertisers they're afraid to advertise on something, especially since anybody can have Tubi. It's free. You just got to click it.
Yeah. So are people fighting them, or is it like this kind of
I think it's more a matter of figuring out which streaming service is best for your film. I think everyone was going to Tubi because it was free and it was a great way for people to see your movie.
Yeah.
But now I think people have to be a little more apprehensive. Everything used to just be on Prime, but now there's just so much competition. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know half these things. Sometimes I go on, you search, okay, I want to see this movie. You search for streaming, and it's only on, whatever it is, Tubi or something. And you're like, oh, geez. So I'll sign up for it just for the month, and then I forget about it. So I think I'm subscribed to like 11 different services. Oh, I just got to know. Shut it off. I'm going to do the do not disturb here. Focus. Okay, Zach, I'm going to go through I'm going to share the IMDb page of yours because I want to kind of go through and tell me what would you say the biggest project you ever worked on? What's your big, what's the Casablanca of your resume?
The best movie I think I'm in is a tie between #Shakespeare Shitstorm, which is Troma's version of Shakespeare's The Tempest.
Oh, great. 2020.
And then I'm most fond of Return to Nukem High Volume 2, which is our sequel to Clash of Nukem High, because I got to be a bad guy in that. And
so is that Return to?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then my particular, the one I have coming out now that I really think is special is called Curse of the Werewolf. And it's a take on like a werewolf movie, but it's all with hunters in the South.
Oh, okay. So you say that's not even out yet?
That premiered a few months ago. It's going to be showing at Tromathon this month, and then hopefully on Blu-ray in a couple months. Okay,
yeah, because it says 2023 that has as a current project, and then they get upcoming. So there's an untitled thriller film in production. Bring on the Damned. That's 2024. And
that's
then
an anthology movie that I'm in. Ian Fidance, the comedian, is also in that.
Oh, okay. And then Toxic Tennis.
I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
I know I'm in it. I know nothing about it.
Well, you play Zach.
Yeah, I'm many times a hired gun.
Yeah.
Or I will be on the road and someone will say, "Hey, will you film something for me real quick?"
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to do it. I could not tell you what Toxic Tennis is. I think it's a James Balsamo film, if I'm correct. So I shot something when we screened Shakespeare Shitstorm in Denver. I shot something quick at the movie theater.
Yeah, and so you are a social justice warrior in the Shakespeare Shitstorm, right?
Yes, we couldn't name me, but I play a parody of Lindy West.
Oh, yeah. Actually, it says it on here. It says Lindy West on the IMDb, so...
Yeah, I play a large blogger woman who frequently breaks the fourth wall and complains about the men who made the movie.
I see. Okay. Let me get rid of this IMDb here. So let's talk about how it's done. Like, how did you get in with Troma? When I first moved to New York, like I said, I had only known. The other one was when I think we were at the world premiere at the Sci-Fi Marathon. We had the world premiere, and this is probably 87 or around there, 86, 87. It was the world premiere of Surf Nazis Must Die, which I think that was Troma, wasn't it?
That is Troma, yes.
Yeah. And so again, this is all kind of before your time, right?
Yeah, I was born in 87.
It's amazing. So then I moved to New York, and I'm living in Hell's Kitchen with my sister, and there was that big Troma sign on 9th
Yeah, that
Avenue.
was the old Troma building in Hell's Kitchen.
And what went on there? Was it a studio? Did they shoot stuff in there?
So that was the production office. They also did shoot stuff there. That was the big office for a very long time. They also had an office in LA, and everyone kind of crammed in there. I know they would shoot like on the roof a lot.
Yeah.
The Troma building has since moved to Long Island City, and the basement is a full green screen, and we shoot a lot of promo stuff there.
And
but yeah, that Hell's Kitchen building, Troma was there for a very long time.
And how did you get involved? Were you there? Were you there in Hell's Kitchen when you got started?
That was a little before me. I was obsessed with Troma. I made Troma-esque movies in college.
Yeah.
I went to film school, and I just would mail them to anybody I saw worked for Troma. I would mail them a DVD.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, why don't you come to the office and meet everybody? And basically, it's the story of almost everyone there. I was willing to sweep the floors and take out the garbage.
Yep.
A couple days a week for free. And I did that for a while. I would do little freelance projects with them, go out on shoots. And then they started the casting Return to Nukem High. And I walked in. I said, hey, I just want to die in this. Like, whatever I can do to die in this movie. And the director and owner of the company, Lloyd, who also created Toxic Avenger, I think he found my enthusiasm admirable. And I said, I'll do anything. And they said, would you get naked? And I said, just stop me, please. I'll anything. And they said, will you get naked tomorrow for an audition? And I said, yeah, sure. What they didn't tell me was that the Village Voice was doing a cover story on Troma. So I got there, and it was a full shoot.
Oh, yeah.
And I just got naked and threw up green foam everywhere. And that weekend, I was naked in the Village Voice.
And what's the green foam? That was
it's Alka-Seltzer. You crush up Alka-Seltzer, put it in your mouth, and then you put water and food coloring in your mouth, and you hold it as long as you can until it explodes.
Oh, yeah. And is that something like a kind of a go-to effect that's in a lot of Troma movies?
Yeah, it's called a meltdown. It's in most of them. They used to use something called Brahmo Seltzer, but that's not as available anymore, so they switched to Alka-Seltzer tablets.
And so what year was this when you went there and you started sweeping the floor?
That's like 2010.
Okay, 2010, and that's in Astoria, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this guy Lloyd, he directed Toxic Avenger or created it?
Yeah, he's been there. It's been his company. They have their 50-year anniversary is actually this year, I believe, because Bloodsucking Freaks came out in '74, and that was the first movie they ever distributed. So yeah, he's been there the whole time. He still runs the whole show. And yeah, they cast me in the movie, and then they found out I was a comedian, and they asked me if I was interested in being the second assistant director. And I, at the time, was living in Brooklyn. They said, we're shooting in Buffalo, New York. Would you move? And I said, when? It was a Saturday. They said, Monday morning. So I quit my job. And I just moved to Buffalo. And I was there for about 3 months working on the movie.
Yeah, where did they shoot it? Did they have some space they were using for free, or?
We actually were in Buffalo. Some of the time, our main shooting location was in the New York side of Niagara Falls. And it was formerly Niagara Falls High School. It's now a building called the NAC, the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center. They rent out all the classrooms to artists. And I want to say, and then I believe the deal we worked out was $2,500 for 24-hour access for a month.
Wow.
And then we got a lawyer in that town to pay that. in exchange that his daughter would be the head PA on the movie because she wanted to get into film, and she quit after a day, and we kept his money.
Oh man, she quit because I think I remember you saying on one of your podcasts that this happens a lot with Troma. People don't understand. I mean, it's a lot of work. You guys, it's non-union, and they put you through the ringer, and you got to be willing to work like long hours for very little, right?
Yeah, we typically were shooting 16 to 18-hour days. And we were, so down the street from the high school was where we lived. It was called the Magadino Funeral Home. It was an abandoned funeral home that had closed in the 90s. It was our living space, office, and special effects warehouse. So we had 65 people sleeping on the floor of a gutted out funeral home.
So do you know how the economics of this Troma system works? I mean, I know that they make some films, but then some of them, like I think Surf Nazis Must Die was made by somebody, and they just got Troma to distribute it, right?
Yeah, so Troma has two types of movies. There's in-house and out-of-house.
Mm-hmm.
In-house are the movies that Troma produces and makes themselves, and then out-of-house movies are movies that they acquire and distribute. Over the years, they've had a couple thousand movies, probably about 50 in-house, and the rest are all out-of-house.
Yeah, and I'm assuming in those days, see, now it's a streaming game, but even in like when you started, 2006 or whatever, we're talking about video stores, right? Like they would produce DVDs and distribute them to stores.
Yeah, DVDs, and the big thing is conventions. Troma will set up tables at horror and sci-fi conventions. Even to this day, our fans still do like to physically own the movie.
Yeah.
I can remember a time when I would go and, VHSs were $25. Now I don't think you can give them away.
Yeah. But there are some guys, I feel like and especially in the world, like this is another thing that's part of that kind of the sci-fi fan world, is these people who are like what do they call it? They always say like you got to own the physical media, right? So they're always. Do you know Matt McCarthy, comedian? Yeah. So Matt McCarthy and I used to share an office, and he is from the wrestling world. He worked for the guys out there in Connecticut for a while, and he's also a huge fan of B movies and stuff, and he's got a massive video collection, and so he's got kind of his own thing. Did you ever work with Matt?
No, I don't believe I have.
So what are the budgets for these movies? Like, obviously you got, something like Toxic Avenger put them on the map, and up till then they had almost no budget, right? These movies were like total shoestring. But what's the highest budget that Troma ever did?
Towards the early 90s, Troma had some cash to throw around because of the Toxic Crusaders cartoon. There was a Toxic Avenger cartoon on Saturday mornings.
Oh, wow.
And so I think Kabuki Man, Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD might have been $2 million.
$2 million?
I believe Toxic Avenger was between $500,000 and $1 million. We did Return to Nukem High, I believe, for $350,000, and Shakespeare Shitstorm was slightly less. But then, they also produced movies. So Curse of the Werewolf, I want to say, was $25,000.
Yeah, $25,000. But so you're talking about the Shakespeare one, like in the hundreds of thousands, the budget. And how do you recoup it? What's the general deal? Do you have to like sign with a streamer, or is it just all different ways?
It's screenings, it's conventions, it's appearances. We frequently, a group of us will tour with the movie when it comes out so that it's an event. So you make your money back slowly through screenings and distribution. And actually, Troma has its own streaming site now.
Yep.
Troma Now, and that tends to be a lot of where some of the day-to-day money comes from for the company.
So they're doing like a monthly fee, and then it's all the Troma you can eat?
Yes.
I think it's amazing, though, I thought you were going to say, distribution, different kinds of streaming, etc. But you're saying it's live, like you're selling tickets to a movie event. It's like you make money the old-fashioned way with these movies.
Yeah, and Lloyd is just shy of 80.
Yeah,
and he still is Willy Loman with the suitcase full of DVDs and stickers, and he goes to everything. He's been making movies for 50 years. He's done very well and has no shame. We did a screening in Atlantic City not too long ago, and I got on the bus at Port Authority, and he was sitting next to me.
Yeah.
And he'll still just, anywhere that'll have him, he's there ready to peddle his wares.
I don't think I've ever seen the guy or an interview. Has anyone done a documentary about Lloyd?
There's a number. We have one coming out called With Love, the Troma Team.
Yeah.
That we shot at the Cannes Film Festival a number of years ago.
Uh-huh.
Lloyd is in everything. He cameos in all of James Gunn's movies. James Gunn who did Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's right. Wait a minute. This is big.
Yes.
James Gunn has got to be the most successful dude who ever, because he came from Troma, right?
Yeah, a surprising amount of people came from Troma. Toxic Avenger was Marissa Tomei's first movie. Samuel L. Jackson, Vincent D'Onofrio is in the first Turn On.
Really?
Trey Parker and Matt Stone's first movie, Cannibal the Musical, was a Troma release. But yeah, James Gunn ran Troma in the 90s pretty much. He co-wrote and many say co-directed what I think is the best Troma movie, Tromeo and Juliet. Which is Romeo and Juliet with Lemmy from Motorhead as the narrator. But yeah, James has gone on to be wildly famous, and he puts Lloyd in every one of his movies still.
Oh, really? Okay, so he's in there. He's
also the thing everyone would know him from. He's the bum in the alleyway in Rocky. When Rocky picks up the bum and puts him on the bar stool.
Yeah.
That's Lloyd. He was actually the location manager on Rocky.
Wow. So yeah, he was working in the kind of legit studio world while he was running his own studio.
Yeah, he kept Troma afloat in the 70s and 80s by working for other companies. He worked on Rocky, Saturday Night Fever, big battleship movie he's in. The Final Countdown.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting you say those two movies because, like, if you go back and look at Rocky or you look at Saturday Night Fever, and these are in the canon of, American movies, but, they're kind of B movies. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Oh, they're very low budget.
Yeah. And they even have the feel of, they have a seedy quality that the B movie genre had, and, so it's interesting that, people who came out of that world. I went to see RoboCop when it came out, and I remember watching it, and it was very, very humorous, and like it was very over the top in a Troma kind of a way. Was anyone in the RoboCop world from the Troma universe?
No, but I will tell you, I know that sticks in. So Lloyd and his partner Michael are run Troma.
Yeah,
it sticks in their craw quite a bit because I actually just did this movie on my show. They did a movie called Troma's War. That was their version of a war movie, and they based all the violence in it off of RoboCop because RoboCop got a PG-13 and they wanted a PG-13.
Yeah.
So even though they had all the exact same deaths as PG-13 RoboCop, they got an X.
Yes.
Because the MPAA is run by 7 people who each represent one of the major studios. So they make deals with each other to, if this can get an R, we could let this slide. But if you're coming in from outside those 7, they're much more harsh on you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like there is some, like Paul Verhoeven, the guy who directed, what were we just talking? And
RoboCop,
yeah.
Troopers.
Yeah. So he probably was a Troma fan because I almost feel like there's a couple of ripoffs and or tributes to kind of Troma in his movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially the guy that melts towards the end of RoboCop.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, he gets totally
exceptionally Troma.
Yes. So Okay, so that's it. The budgets, the movies, and you're still doing them. Like you're at some point, you know what I did? It's so funny. When I was getting ready for this podcast, I was like, I would like to tell Zach about this movie that I did, but for years and years, I haven't been able to think of this movie because when I was first in the city in the '90s, I'm running around auditioning for everything out of like ads in the Village Voice, right? So I auditioned for this horror movie and I got it and it paid like, $200 or something. And I had to be there all day and we shot whatever. But then I forgot the name of it. And I was like, oh, I wish I could remember the name of that because it's not on my IMDb. But I was always thinking like, oh, I wish I knew the name of that movie. And then it came to me. I'm sitting there having coffee today and I remembered The Regenerated Man. Did you ever hear of that movie?
No, I haven't, but I'm definitely going to look it up.
Look, we're gonna go to the so Regenerated Man. It happened maybe 92, maybe 93. It says 94 on it, but I know it wasn't 94 that I did it because these movies sometimes they take like a year or two.
Some of them take a year or two to get to be released.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at The Regenerated Man. It's unbelievable because the first time I went to look for it was today. So can we see that yet? Do we see it? No. Here we go. Share the screen. And here we go.
I walked away without a scratch.
Okay, so it's a couple of bums. They're
Within a week,
drinking.
I lost my job. Without insurance, in 6 months, I was out on the street.
This scene is so bad. It goes on for so long.
Everyone that I ever cared about is dead.
So here comes my scene coming up here.
And I thought I had it back, pissing on myself. I don't like all this pissing talk. This coming from a man who hasn't changed his underwear in 3 months.
Okay.
That's great.
Oh, now it's still playing. Hold on. Okay. So anyway, then what happens? He pushes my head down a few more times, and then the guy drinks a test tube full of something that he got, outside the alleyway of a lab, and then he turns into a monster and kills the other guy, and I have to watch the whole thing. So anyway, The Regenerated Man, 1994.
Yeah, I'm definitely. It's very. It reminds me of the movie Street Trash very much.
It was like some of these scenes. I feel like when they come up with the set and the costumes, like that scene goes on. It's two guys. There's basically one thing that has to happen in that scene, and that's the guy drinks the test tube, and then he turns into a monster, right? So you could have a couple of lines at the beginning, a couple of bums. Hey, we're bums. Look, we're drinking. It goes on. It's like 5 minutes of nonsense. These guys talking back and forth, and sometimes I feel like these movies. Like if they got the set, they're gonna just shoot a long scene because they paid for the for the day.
I believe the term is padding the runtime.
That's it. Exactly.
Movies have to be a certain amount.
Yeah.
A certain length to be a feature film.
Yeah.
And I could think of quite a few movies that reuse shots, or double up on stuff, or use slow motion for no reason. Yeah. Full Moon Movies is another company similar to Troma. We always joke on my show that all their credit sequences are 15 minutes long. They credit everyone twice in the beginning and end, and the movie's like 69 minutes.
Because what do you got to get to? Like you're saying, it's got to get to be like an hour and 10 minutes.
You should hit about an hour 10, hour 15.
Yeah, yeah. But I was just talking to my wife about this last night with the streaming world. I feel like nobody likes movies anymore. They all want everything to be a series, So if you come up with an idea, they're like, "Can you give us 5 episodes or something?" Is there any does Troma do any series like that?
Actually, Return to Nukem High at one point was going to be a TV series, a limited run, because Stars Media produced it along with Anchor Bay. So they got all their money up front on that one, and then accidentally shot 2 movies worth of footage. So they got a free movie out of it. They definitely didn't do that with Toxic Avenger 2 and 3 the exact same way. the only TV show Troma had. They had a show on the BBC in the 2000s called Troma's Edge TV. And it was a combination of sketches that they shot in and around the office, as well as clips from Troma movies, like kind of mixed in.
Yeah.
And it was pretty fun. I enjoy it very much.
Okay, Troma, it's like low budget. You don't make much money acting in these things. I mean, you make something, right? They pay you for the day?
Depending on the size of your role, we don't use the term extra because no one's extra. We use the term actor persons. And you will get in trouble if you refer to them as extras. Yeah. The actor persons usually are not compensated. And then the main roles, depending, it's a varying degree. A lot of people are doing it for the love of the game. Yeah. And so have you, like, it's exhausting. You know, when I was first starting out, I was glad to do The Regenerated Man. I spent all day. It was really hot in that studio, and I had to be in the overcoat with the hat on and everything. You know, it wasn't torture, but it was a long day, okay? But I was so happy to do it. I made a couple $100, and then I was telling everybody, oh, I made a movie. It was like my first, feature film. But then after a while, it didn't take long. You know, I did Law and Order, got in the union. I started doing the union shoots. I was doing commercials. And then within like a couple of years, I had no patience for anything. So I would never do another one of those movies. Like it takes, it takes all day. You don't want to complain because you're doing a movie and people are like, oh yeah, come on, you're making movies. But you got to wake up at 4 a.m. You spend all day. It's very uncomfortable. And so after a while, you're like, I'm not doing that anymore. But it's like love of the game for you. Shooting one next month. That's great. I am no longer completely behind the scenes with Troma. That era of my life I have graduated from. But I am going to go do a couple days on their new movie that they're shooting in August. Yeah. And I love it. I've for a man of my carriage, I possess boundless energy. With that being said, we've always joked that it's not a movie until I've fallen asleep and ruined the take. Because I'm always dead on the floor in so many movies that I'm used to it and I just fall asleep. Yeah. And on more than one film, I've had an actor or actress, giving like the performance of their life and they have to yell cut because you hear my sleep apnea. That was like me in The Regenerated Man. I was laying there with newspaper on top of myself, and the two other homeless guys were doing the whole scene. So I had to just every once in a while interject with my line. But yeah, I was lying flat for the whole day. I've also been known on very busy days to cast myself as an actor person, but it's always bum asleep. Yeah. And you'll see my boots sticking out of a box. Yeah. And at a certain point, the DP will realize I have done that so that I can go to sleep in plain view of everyone. Yeah. It's true. There's a lot of homeless people in horror movies, right? Like there's always a role for like in an alley with a bum, What we can't afford in set dressing or art department, we make up for with actual humans. Yeah. If there's a lot of people in the scene, it looks like it costs a lot of money. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, like, I think in that scene, tell me if there's a kind of a word for this, because in that scene, there's the two homeless guys and they're laughing and joking and then they're drinking and then he drinks the test tube, turns into a monster and he murders the other homeless guy. Okay. That's the last scene, is the monster just crushing his head or something. And then every once in a while they cut to me witnessing the whole thing. Like, I feel like in a horror movie, you need that third guy. Like, you need someone witnessing, right? It can't just be two guys and then one gets murdered by the other. Yeah, that would be the reaction shot. Yeah. Yeah, it's like I'm almost like the audience, right? I'm with them. I'm very frequently we'll have, if somebody dies in public in a Troma movie, you cut to a crowd of people gathering and pointing and screaming. Yeah. So, okay, now let's talk about your other world. So you, even back when you started at Troma, you were doing stand-up. And then at some point you got involved with the Legion of Skanks guys and what's Lewis's company called? Gas. Okay, Gas Digital. So you obviously
the podcast with Lewis is massive, right? I mean, this is huge.
We do okay, yeah. It's a good way to make a living.
And then you got your own thing on the side, which isn't doing bad either. I mean, I don't know how many, but I saw you had 50,000 subscribers or whatever on the YouTube.
Yeah, I do okay.
Yeah. And then you tour. So you're going around to clubs, and you don't go around with the Gas Digital guys. It's you. You're the man of the hour when you go,
Yeah, touring. I started headlining about 2 years ago.
Okay. And was that like would you say your crowd is the Gas Digital listening audience?
More or less. And then I get a good peppering of Troma fans that come out as well.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because you do the conventions and the Troma and stuff like that. Do you do is Comic-Con, is that part of your world?
Not particularly. That's a little... Comic-Con has become just a very expensive mall for nerds.
Yeah.
It's more about what they're going to debut and what's for sale. I know they do comedy and stuff like that, but that's not really my world.
Uh-huh.
I, in fact, have done more stand-up around pro wrestling stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's right, because the wrestling world, that's part of your thing as well. So you got the wrestling world, you got the Gas Digital, and then you got Troma. And then, so when you go play a club, do you bring guys with you, or do you just use a local opener?
I have a couple friends that I bring with me.
Uh-huh.
Great comic Alex Tomaselli opens for me a lot.
Yep.
I have another good buddy, Peter Angelo, who tends to go out on the road with me.
Yeah. And then you're mailing lists, social media, hey, I'm coming to town, Yeah,
and the podcast does a lot of the heavy lifting on promotion.
Yeah.
Because, you plug your dates every episode.
Yep.
But yeah, I've been out on a tour for on and off for a while, and I'm just about to head out 2 weeks for about 2 weeks worth of gigs.
Some of the things I've seen just through probably Lewis's YouTube page, or I saw a recent thing where it was like a kind of a roast battle, you and some other guy, right? So the topics come up. It was
that was spit roast, yeah.
Okay, spit roast, and you guys had to do Bud Light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the Gas Digital guys or Sherrod, and these guys were judging you, right? So what do they do when you prepare for that? Do they give you all the topics and you have to think over and be ready for every one of them, or is it total improv, or what?
No, they tipped us off to what 3 topics we were going to have.
Okay.
That's a massive amount of writing.
Yeah.
I always tell people that that's not a roast, that's a competition for monologue jokes.
Yeah.
Because it's a roast, but technically we're doing monologue jokes about whatever's in the news.
That's right. And it's quite extensive. So I knew it wasn't just improv, because you guys had the subjects ready, and it went on for some time. You're doing Bud Light. But I didn't know if it was, obviously, that's just kind of a gag where they have 100 subjects. And then there was another one which seemed like an improv show. It probably was at maybe Skankfest or something. Pretty big crowd. But you were just sitting on stage, and you were, I don't know.
Talking about Ric Flair, I think.
Yeah. Ric Flair. And then there was the thing, I don't know if it was on the same show, but it was, somebody was yelling out, this was one of your shorts. Somebody yelled out Color Purple, and you were, making fun of the guy or whatever. But is that whole show like almost like an improv stand-up show? That's
Jeremiah Watkins' show. It's called Stand Up on the Spot.
Uh-huh.
And you're not allowed to do any written material. You walk on stage and you have to take suggestions.
Yeah.
That's very much his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable with it.
Oh, really?
It scared the shit out of me, yeah.
Oh, it's funny because if, I'm poking around looking at your stuff, and, you had the roast battle, you had the stand up on the spot. And so I almost thought you were like, that was your game. You were like, I'm an improv, stand up. But you're telling me you're not even comfortable with that.
No, it's not my wheelhouse at all. But I was happy he made me step out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. Because the times I've done that, there was a show in Edinburgh. I forget what the name of it was, but it's kind of a well-known thing where it's all improv stand up. And it was hard. I mean, I didn't bomb in the sense that, I tend to be comfortable on stage, but I bombed. I mean, essentially, like, if you can bomb without really bombing, that's what I did, because I don't know. It just was not, and I've done improv. I used to be in an improv group. I'm comfortable with the idea, but it's not just, the audience doesn't really give you points for being comfortable.
Yeah, that show, Jeremiah puts together really well. He explains it very well to the crowd, how it's going to go. And most people, I would say, do very well on it. But he also picks exceptionally talented people usually. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to crowd work, that's something we're all familiar with. People talking to people in the audience. Essentially, that's a lot easier because it is improvisation. And then you can always just keep talking to the person until
it's
something comes up.
conversational.
Yes.
As opposed to this, which is go.
Yeah. And you're like, you got to think of the setup and then you got to think of the punchline. And if you don't hammer in those terms, the audience is often very unforgiving. So anyway, that's your right now. How do you do it? How do you put it all together? I mean, I don't want you to tell me I make this much money doing podcasting. I make this much on the road, but you've put together a career for yourself. And how would you say, I mean, for me, I'll tell you, like, I work for Fox, right? So that's the bulk of my income, Fox. But then I use Gutfeld to promote my live shows. When I go on the road, now finally I can fill a comedy room because of the plugging on the Gutfeld show. So but still, the bulk of my income is broadcasting. How would you put it together? Like, would you say your?
I would say the bulk of my income is also from podcasting.
Yeah.
And then my ability to have a comfortable life is from on the road.
Yeah, that kind of just adds to it. But the podcasting. So do you have like, I don't even know how Lewis does it. I mean, would you say Gas Digital, right? Mm-hmm. What percentage do you think is advertising, and what percentage would you say, even if I don't know if you know the answer to this, for someone like Lewis with his company, do you think it's mostly a streaming deal where people, the monthly subscribers, or is he making mostly from advertising?
I'll tell you, they're very transparent. I get a breakdown every month.
Oh, you do?
Of my check. And they're very honest. So there's multiple income sources with Gas Digital. You have advertiser money because we do commercials. And then we have the website where you get exclusive access to the shows 5 days early, uncensored, and you get the archives. When people sign up for the network, then you can use a promo code. Yeah. So if they use ZAC, which is mine, I get a piece of that subscription every month.
Right. Oh, that's good.
And the same, me and Lewis split Real Ass Podcast down the middle.
You do. That's great.
Which is very generous of them. And then, everybody there, you get an advertising check. And then on top of that, you get your, based off your promo code, you get a payout.
It's amazing. I mean, I think Lewis is obviously I met him. He was a kid. Like, Lewis was a kid, and he'd be like, "Hey, I'm Louis J. Gomez. Come do spots." And he didn't even have a club. He was doing them in the back of a room. I was an established comic. I mean, I wasn't the greatest guy in the world, but I was a professional comic. And I thought this kid's hustling. He's down, because he would flyer in Times Square.
Yeah, that's when he ran Poster Dog.
Yeah, Poster Dog, right? And so he and his buddies would flyer, and then they would ask me to do the show, and then they would bill me as like, hey, this headliner from Letterman, or what. I hadn't even done Letterman, but I had done Conan or whatever. So I would come in and do his show, and he would pack the room, and he was such a great entrepreneur at the time. But now what he's done, I mean, I think Gas Digital is like, it's huge. Like, who does it? Who's in your league, the Gas Digital League? Like, there's nobody who's doing it as well. I mean, obviously you have these big podcasting things that are more like establishment, types or whatever.
I'd say there's a good time. All Things Comedy does really great. The Your Mom's House guys, they have that great network. Lewis is, so I actually I sold tickets on the street. Lewis trained me. Yeah. When I was 20. That's how I met Lewis. I was a doorman at a comedy club, and he trained me how to sell tickets on the street. Yeah. So you did it all. I mean, you started sweeping the floor at Troma, working the door at what club were you working the door at? It was called CB's. It was right down the street from the Cellar. It was also the Comedy Stop, I think it was called at one point.
Yeah.
It was right under Cafe Del Mar. And yeah, at that time I was sweeping the floors and taking out the garbage for free at Troma. And then I would shoot down on the F train and work the door and sell tickets till 2 a.m. in front of the club.
It's amazing. And it is a similar beginning. When you were telling me about starting at Troma, it reminded me of the way most people got started doing comedy. I mean, Dave Chappelle used to do the door at the Boston Comedy Club. Yeah.
Yeah. The guy who ran Boston, Wayne Rada, ran CB's.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And was that Dustin? Dustin Chafin was down there?
No, you're thinking of the same block, different club.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the one. Because when Dustin started doing that room, I would go down and do that. So anyway, I mean, great talking to you. I could talk to you forever just about Troma in the indie film world. I think it's fantastic. Let's tell people because I'm imagining my audience is like, it's very different from your Gas Digital crowd. So I want to send them to the right places. I went to your Twitter, but it didn't look like you've tweeted in a while. That's not the place you hang out. I have a
second Twitter. That Twitter was taken away from me
because
some girl was saying that South Park was Republican, and I called her a big fat cunt, and they took my Twitter away. So my Twitter is ZA Spook Show. My Instagram, Zac is not funny. ZAC is not funny.
Yeah,
that's the best way to find me. 4 shows a week. I have 3 real ass podcasts. That's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And Friday nights at midnight, I do Zac Amico's Midnight Spook Show. All those are on Gas Digital. They go up for free on YouTube, Stitcher, however you watch your podcasts. A couple days later.
So if you go on and you watch Zac on YouTube or the Gas Digital guys, and then you want to subscribe to Gas Digital, use the what? Zac, it's just ZAC.
GasDigital.com, promo code ZAC. You get $1.50 off the subscription a month, and you get access to the archives. We have, I think, over 1,000 episodes of Real Ass Podcast, and I'm just about to hit 300 on Spook Show. So that's, it's enough content to last you for quite a while.
It's great. It's great. All right. Zac Amico, thank
you so much for having me, brother. It was a lot of fun.